About a half cup.
Not that much.
Come up your head. I'm so glad you're up here on the table and not asleep on the sofa. Here we go. Did you get a
Thank
good
you.
brush this morning? Yeah? Did you brush him?
Yeah.
I'm almost finished with this. Almost finished with this. I'm looking at your belly. Hey. Be nice. No claws. And no teeth. You bit me. Riley. He bit me hard enough to draw blood.
Wow. I must be pissed. Riley, go over there and say you're sorry.
He did already.
Did you say you're sorry? Huh?
He did. He gave me a kiss.
Whoa, we're about to be broadcasted. Hey, Matt, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up on the old texter, will you? Or not. There you go. Okay, everybody, welcome to the good morning. This is Uncle Eddie. I am reading. Today is going to be April 6th. It's a Monday morning, and we are reading from the Acadiana Morning Advocate. This is a public service of AOC Community Media. We generally try to get to the local news, give you a little bit of national news and some horoscopes and so forth. I hope you're able to share this with your friends who are in need of audio versions of things that are going on in their community. Appreciate your time. I'm going to start off with the big story, the headline, healthcare workers in Acadiana. Hold on. Healthcare workers in Acadiana hospitals say coronavirus has led to a Hunger Games type vibe. This is written by Megan Wyatt on April 5th at 9 p.m. Acadiana healthcare workers are bracing for chaos in the days and weeks ahead as the number of known coronavirus cases continue to multiply across Louisiana. We're watching closely as COVID-19 patients overwhelm hospital systems in the New Orleans area, forcing healthcare workers to use ration supplies and even make distressing decisions about patient care to free up ventilators. Although Acadiana healthcare workers say that's not happening in their hospitals, they say it's only a matter of time before it's their own reality. They described an eerie atmosphere in their workplaces, which are quieter than usual because of the postponed procedures and visitation restrictions. One nurse said personal protective equipment is being kept under lock and key after employee thefts of masks. A clinician at another hospital said x-rays for broken bones and other injuries are revealing signature signs of COVID-19 in asymptomatic patients. The hospital maintenance worker reminded everyone that it's just not doctors and nurses who are putting themselves at risk every day. They are among the healthcare workers who shared their stories with the Acadiana Advocate on the condition that their names not be published because the hospitals they work in have policies requiring that media inquiries be handled by communications specialists. A clinician at University Hospital and Clinics told the reporter he believes Acadiana hospitals are experiencing about a 3-week lag behind what hospitals in New Orleans are seeing and a 2-week lag behind Baton Rouge. Honestly, it's not too bad in Lafayette right now, he said. It seems like fewer people are actually coming into the ER right now, which is actually fantastic. But Baton Rouge is somewhat of a different story, and New Orleans is a whole different story. In Lafayette, I think we would call this the calm before the storm. He said about half the patients he sees in Lafayette emergency room in the past week have been for significant COVID-19 symptoms. Perhaps more concerning, he said, are patients whose lungs showed telltale signs of the coronavirus, but otherwise had no symptoms of the virus. He said they were in the hospital for for treatment of broken bones and other injuries. That guy that got run over by the car, you take the x-ray to see if he has broken ribs, and it turns out he has coronavirus, the clinician said. There are a lot of people who come in with symptoms totally unrelated to the disease, and they probably didn't even know they had it. N-19 masks, which were at one time changed between patients with symptoms of highly contagious disease, such as COVID-19, but the clinician said that they're now being changed only once every 5 days. He said they are being worn beneath surgical masks to prolong their lifespan. He said masks, gloves, gowns, and other personal protective equipment are being used as recommended in the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, although there's a palpable fear among hospital employees that they will run out of supplies. I never go without, the clinician said. There's definitely a feeling that we might run out of these things soon, but I've never had to go without, and our operating procedures are still exceeding the basic recommendations set out by the CDC, so I feel pretty good about that. Healthcare workers at other Acadiana hospitals shared similar stories with the newspaper, saying they were concerned about supplies in the days and weeks ahead. A nurse at Iberia Medical Center has already reported wearing the same mask for, quote, weeks at a time, unquote. They're also supposed to be used on 1 day max, said the nurse said. We're getting scared. A nurse at Lafayette General Medical Center said each nurse has been given an N95 mask and is expected to keep that mask in the locker until when it is not being worn. Even though employees must fill out a form to get a replacement mask, they have not had to go without, she said. We're not struggling right now, the LGMC nurse said. We have everything we need, but everything is under lock and key. The Louisiana Hospital Association confirmed shortages of personal protective equipment in Acadiana and other parts of the state. The agency said in an email to the Advocate that hospitals are partnering with businesses and public health officials to secure additional supplies while following CDC guidelines to prolong their use. The LGMC nurse said hospital employees that have been asked about previous training, certifications, and job experience in recent weeks to prepare for the possibility of working in areas outside of their current positions. What she said she is the most concerned about, however, are the number of intensive care unit beds and ventilators available at LGMC and other hospitals in Acadiana. She said she's fearful for the days and weeks ahead, which she worries might include caring for patients from overflowing hospitals in New Orleans and the Baton Rouge area. We're going to be the people that they don't have the medical equipment and supplies for, and they're going to die, the nurse said. This is really going to be a first-come, first-served basis, or a matter of weeding out and then deciding who we need to save the ventilators for. The Louisiana Department of Health figures from midday on Sunday showed that a higher proportion of ICU beds were occupied in the Acadiana as compared to other parts of the state. There are 125 ICU beds filled out of the 162 total beds in the Department of in the Department of Health's Region 4, which includes Lafayette, Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, St. Landry, St. Martin, and Vermilion parishes. Acadiana's 77.4 occupancy rate for ICU beds has surpassed Sunday only by the New Orleans Area 1, which has an 80% occupancy for ICU beds. Just under half of the ventilators in Acadiana are being used, 96 out of 206 on Sunday, which is comparable to other regions in the state. The LGMC nurse said her hospital hasn't been overwhelmed by the COVID-19 patients, but the atmosphere has become grim. We're going to sound very weird, but it's kind of like I get the Hunger Games vibe all the time, she said, referencing the book and movie franchise about a dystopian future. We see all of these people with PPE everywhere, and the parking towers are like silent, and there's only employees walking in the hospital hallways. It's all very strange. A lot of us are spooked by that. A maintenance staffer at the Lafayette Hospital said he faces the same dangers as doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals while making repairs to rooms where COVID-19 patients are staying. Like other medical professions, he says he is concerned about bringing home the virus to his loved ones. I'm sleeping in a spare bedroom to reduce the chance of passing on to my wife whatever I pick up from work. I'm getting nightmares, he said. The public and the news media focuses on doctors and nurses. They seem to forget the maintenance, housekeeping, food, security, and all the other support staff that must also provide care to these patients. We feel forgotten and ignored. A few healthcare workers in Acadiana have shared their first-hand experiences in hospitals on social media, but most of those posts have been quickly disappeared from timelines, likely at the request of their employers. The posts have included everything from video descriptions of patients' fears as they were treated in isolation from loved ones to staff exhaustion to concerns about hospital conditions to pleas with the public to stay at home. My coworkers and I are exhausted, traumatized, and scared. But we're a team of rock stars, and we will push through the public health crisis, an ICU nurse at Lafayette wrote on this Facebook page last week. We will fight for our patients every single day, no matter the circumstances, but please don't make it harder for us to fight by going to places and gathering people when it's not essential to do so. Stay at home, encourage your loved ones to stay at home, hold each other accountable, and pray for everyone on the first lines of this pandemic. That's from the front lines, ladies and gentlemen. Next article, a little bit sad news. Longtime UL President Ray Allemond dies at age 91. This is also written by Megan Wyatt yesterday afternoon. Ray P. Allemond, who served as president of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette for 34 years, has died. He was 91 years old. Ray died Sunday with his wife Barbara at his side after an extended illness, according to a statement from the university. Under Allemond's leadership, UL became a major economic force in Acadiana, earning a national reputation in the fields of computer science, engineering, nursing, and francophone studies. Through dedication, determination, and selflessness, he changed how the university saw itself and how others perceived it as well, said UL President Joseph Savoy in a prepared statement. He guided our growth from a strong regional university to one nationally recognized and globally for its research and scholarship. Despite its growing reputation, Allemond ensured the university remained committed to Acadiana. When the area oil industry collapsed in the early 1980s, UL's budget was cut by $10 million. In spite of its own financial straits, the university, at Allemond's direction, led efforts to bolster the regional economy by creating research centers that helped existing companies improve their operations and fostered the growth of new businesses as well. Also strengthening its efforts to preserve, it also strengthens its efforts to preserve and examine Louisiana culture. During Dr. Allemond's presidency, we became the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, a significant center of learning, an engine of economic growth, and a place that prioritizes student success and academic excellence, Savoy said. Our university's achievements today, and it's important to Louisiana's future, are rooted in the foundation he built. UL stands as a monument to his visionary leadership. Jim Henderson, president of the University of Louisiana System, echoed Savoy's sentiments. As the longest-serving public university president in the United States, Dr. Allemond laid the foundation for the extraordinary advancement of UL Lafayette into a national model and a source of pride for Louisiana, Henderson said in a prepared statement. Countless students and multiple generations were blessed by his leadership. Kim Hunter-Reid, UL Louisiana's Commissioner of Higher Education, said Allemond brought his sharp mind, vision for academic excellence, and student dedication to the role he cherished as president of UL. Quote, as we mourn his passing, we at the Board of Regents celebrate an educator of the ages and reflect on his rich legacy, Hunter-Reid said in a statement. Allemond was unanimously chosen in 1997 to be the fifth president of UL to be the fifth President UL, which was known at the University of South Louisiana. I'm sorry, folks, I'll start that paragraph over. Audemars was unanimously chosen in 1973 to be the fifth President UL, which is known as the University of Southwestern Louisiana for much of his tenure from 1974 through 2008. During his tenure, UL became the first university in the country to establish a birthing lab, a center to promote bilingualism, and offer a doctorate in Francophone studies. The university had 217 professorial endowments and became the first in the state to require the Multax computer system, second in the nation only to MIT. Audemars also oversaw the installation of a fiber optic network on campus and was president when the university received the Doctoral II designation. The university established 17 research centers during Audemars' tenure and opened University Research Park. The park's tenants grew to include the National Wetlands Research Center, the Cecil J. Picard Center for Early Childhood Development, and the Louisiana Immersive Technologies Enterprise, or LIGHT Center. More than 30 buildings were constructed and over 25 facilities were renovated or expanded from 1974 to 2008. And those included the Hilliard Art Museum, Moody, Abdallah, Fletcher, and Oliver Hall, whatever that is. Legacy Park, apartment-styled student residences, and an indoor practice facility for the Ragin' Cajun athletic teams. Edith Garland Dupree Library was enlarged and renovated. The Cajun Dome was opened in 1986 and was expanded to include the Convention Center in 2002. During Audemars' administration, the university also changed its name from USL to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, implemented academic admission standards, became the first Doctoral II institution in Louisiana, completed an NCAA Division I, the highest level of collegiate athletic competition, and increased gifted assets by more than $150 million. Audemars was a devoted family man, a faithful Catholic, and a passionate advocate for the advancement of higher education in the state, according to the university's obituary. The first-generation college student who eventually earned his doctorate in math came from humble beginnings where education and family were his priorities. His love of academics led him to leave his home in Boudreaux Canal in Terrebonne Parish to hitchhike to Lafayette to attend UL, then known as SLI, where he earns his Bachelor of Science degree in physics with a minor in mathematics. Audemars also went on to earn a master's degree in 1952 and a doctorate in math in 1956 from LSU. His higher education started at LSU in 1954 and continued at McNeese State University in Lake Charles and at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Audemars returned to UL in 1957 to teach mathematics, and he later would become an academic vice president of the university before rising to the top position at UL. Audemars has been awarded numerous honors for his academic leadership, including a Lifetime Achievement Award last fall for his dedication to medical education at the university. Awards, scholarship, and colleges within the university have been named in his honor. He is also named President Emeritus of the UL system in 2009, the year after he retired. The family is planning a celebration of his life after the coronavirus restrictions on public gatherings are lifted. The family has asked for memorial contributions to be made to the UL Lafayette Foundation or the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Lafayette. He was a good man. That's an editorial remark. I'm not supposed to editorialize. Let's go back to coronavirus. Let's see. Louisiana has 13,010 known coronavirus cases as of Sunday, with 550 in Acadiana. Again, this is written by Megan Wyatt, who seemed to have been pretty busy yesterday. There are an additional 514 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus reported Sunday in Louisiana, including 45 additional cases in the Acadiana area. There is an additional 68 people in Louisiana who died from COVID-19 in between noon Saturday and noon on Sunday, including 2 more deaths reported in the Acadiana region. That marks the biggest day-to-day jump in statewide deaths from the infectious disease. Figures released Sunday by the Louisiana Department of Health bring the state's known number of coronavirus cases to 13,010. Of those, 550 are in the Acadiana region, known as Region 4, which includes Lafayette, Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, St. Landry, St. Martin, and Vermilion parishes. A total of 477 have died from the virus in Louisiana, with 19 of those being in the Acadiana area. Data released one day earlier by the Department of Health showed an unexpected drop in the number of confirmed coronavirus cases in the Acadiana region because of reporting errors at commercial labs. That was not the case on Sunday, however. Acadiana saw 8.9% in cases, saw an 8.9 in cases from Saturday to Sunday. That was a 4.1 increase in cases across the state during the same time frame. Here's a look at the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths by region in our region by parish. In Lafayette, we have 247 cases with 5 deaths. Iberia has 69 cases with 3 deaths. Acadia has 75 cases with 2 deaths. St. Martin, 77 cases with 4 deaths. St. Landry, 47 cases with 4 deaths. Evangeline, 19 cases with 0 deaths, and Vermilion, 16 cases and 1 death. There were 125 intensive care unit beds occupied out of 162 total beds in Region 4 as of Sunday. Acadiana's 77% occupancy rate for ICU beds was surpassed on Sunday only by Region 1, which has an 80% occupancy rate for ICU beds across the New Orleans region. Just over half of the ventilators in Acadiana are available as of Sunday, which is comparable to other regions in the state. Louisiana's first case was reported on March 9th, and the first case was reported in Acadiana on March 18th. Testing for those with symptoms of COVID-19 are at high risk for complications, happening from 8:30 to 10:30 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the Cajun Dome in Lafayette. State and local officials have warned that there will be more positive cases and deaths in the days ahead. We knew that already. That's the end of that story. Here's a touch of good news for you. Cajun musician Zachary Richard clarifies the coronavirus report. I have not been tested. You may have heard yesterday that he was positive. That's not true. Again, this is written by Megan Wyatt. She wrote this again on yesterday. Cajun singer-songwriter Zachary Richard clarified Sunday afternoon that he has not tested positive for the novel coronavirus as reported Sunday morning on ICI Premier, a Canadian French-language radio network. Richard, 69, says he chose self-quarantining over the weekend at his Scott home because he had been feeling a little sick, although he does not have the signature symptoms of COVID-19. I'm run down, fatigued, Richard said in a phone interview Sunday afternoon with an Acadian advocate. I have no fever, no cough, none of the signature symptoms. I just didn't want to take the risk of exposing my mom to anything. Richard is one of the few caregivers for his 98-year-old mom. He told Franco Nouveau, the host of Désignement Dimanche, something in French I can't read, that he has chosen to isolate from his mom because he has been feeling a little sick. Look, it's better than yesterday, and I think it's going to be even better tomorrow, Richard said during the show, which translates into Draw Me a Sunday. Richard said the radio station shared misinformation after the segment that he had tested positive for 19, which is not true. The musician did discuss the coronavirus crisis in Louisiana, which he described as surreal. Richard said he is now planning on seeking testing for the virus because of his concern from the community. I'm in the process of arranging to get tested, he said. Since I'm not exhibiting the signature symptoms, I do not feel that I should actually be able to get tested. I do not feel that I would actually be able to get tested. The musician expressed that he has been overwhelmed by the number of people who have reached out to him, and he'll share his test results to the community in the coming days. I'd just like to thank everyone for their well wishes, Richard said. I apologize for any dismay that I have made because of the community, and I just want to pray that everyone stays isolated and stays safe. We appreciate that, Zachary. Repeat that, what he just said. Stay isolated and stay safe. A little bit of business news for you. This was written by Evelyn Couvillon on April 6th. It was early this morning. Sugarcane farmers relying on temporary workers as planting nears, and they watch for the coronavirus. The 4 people from Mexico who have worked seasonally for many years at the Rango sugar cane and soybean farm in Iberville, I'm going to start this whole paragraph over. I have English in my mouth. The 4 people from Mexico who have worked seasonally for many years on the Ramagoso's sugarcane and soybean farm in Iberville Parish were in the U.S. consulate in Monterrey, Mexico in mid-March, going through the usual 4-day processing of getting a temporary visa for agricultural workers in the U.S. when the coronavirus caused a short-lived but an unsettling state of limbo for both workers and farmers. The consulate sent out an email saying it was suspending routine immigration and non-immigration services beginning May 8th until further notice, and Kate Ramagos' sister, who farms alongside her father, Cecil Ramagos Jr., and 2 of her brothers in the family's 1,100-acre farm near Plaquemine. We get about 1,000 phone calls and text emails last night, said Katie's sister, who also chairs the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation's Labor Committee and sits on the Labor Advisory Committee of the American Farm Bureau. Many of the calls were from Louisiana farmers whose workers had interviews at the consulate scheduled for March 18th. The situation at the UL consulate in Monterey continued to change over the next few days. The office announced it would continue processing temporary worker visas, but only for those who were renewing their visas and had worked in the U.S. within the past 12 months. Later, that was pushed into the last 48 months. Everything is being changed as we learned about it, Sinstrunk said. The Louisiana sugarcane industry is dependent on temporary workers from other countries, including Mexico, Guatemala, and South America. Those workers apply for and receive an H-2A temporary agricultural visa through the U.S. Department of Labor. It's difficult for farmers to find domestic workers, even though by federal law the farmers are required to place ads for job openings in local newspapers, Sistrunk said. I couldn't tell you the last generation that was able to get domestic workers, Sinstrunk said, a 4th-generation farmer on the family's farm. We couldn't have run this farm without H-2A workers, Sinstrunk said. Louisiana ranks 6th in the country for the number of H-2A visa workers, at approximately 10,800 working in a variety of crops in 2019, said Brian Breaux, Senior Commodity and Public Policy Director of Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. Those workers are central, he said. You just can't do this type of work without those workers. The 4 workers who will be driving tractors and combines at the Ramagos farm over the next 10 months, from the preparation to the fields to the harvest, are now at the farm. But the Ramagos family and other sugarcane farmers are now preparing paperwork for a May 1st deadline to bring in additional temporary workers for the hand labor needed during planting season that typically runs through from late July through October, and they're hoping the process goes smoothly. Sugarcane farmers don't worry about one thing right now, which is the weather. The weather has allowed our farmers to get into the fields, said Jim Simon, manager of the American Sugarcane League. The cultivation season, we've had these nice stretches of dry weather. Any difficulty we had getting labor has been offset by the dry weather. After harvest in the fall, the 11 sugar mills in Louisiana, which also rely on temporary agricultural workers from other countries, will be looking for their crews to return to operate the equipment used in sugar processing, which runs 24/7 from October through mid-January. Those workers, usually returning workers, all come out on H-2B visas issued through the Department of Labor. Those workers are highly skilled, good at what they do, said LSU agricultural economist Michael Deliberto. It's a majority of the sugar mill's labor force, Deliberto said. If we had to rely on people coming in who apply off the street, they probably couldn't do it at all. At the mills, the juice of the cane is boiled until it's reduced to thick syrup and starts to crystallize, Simon said. No one would just stop boiling the sugar and drop it into the centrifugal machine to retain the crystals. That's an art form, he said. There's ongoing concern that if this coronavirus issue doesn't abate and moves into the fall, governments and consulates will become more restrictive and impact the sugar mills, Simon said. Meanwhile, Sistrunk has a new responsibility this year, guarding his farm workers from the coronavirus. She provided the visa workers with printed and video information from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, recommended precautions such as social distancing and hand washing. As agricultural workers, they already have personal protective equipment, although Sistrunk said that equipment is harder to get this year. The workers will have individual rooms in their home on the Ramagosos Ranch with a shared kitchen and living area and a commercial-type restroom. The house was cleaned and ready for them, and its supplies of cleaning products and equipment, Sistrunk said. Housing for temporary agriculture workers is highly regulated and inspected by the Department of Labor. In her role as Labor Committee Chair for the Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation, Sistrunk is preparing a package of information for farmers on steps to take against the coronavirus on the farm. We're in brand new times, she said, and we're trying to figure it out as we go. You have to think 10 paces in advance, Sistrunk said. That's the end of that article, and it points out the need for immigrants. If we're going to have sugar cane, we got to have labor to do it, and the regular American just won't pick up the hoe. Coronavirus forces Louisiana companies to set up remote work capabilities overnight. This was written by Timothy Boone. Within 30 minutes of a statewide stay-at-home order being issued on a Sunday, planning started in just one day's notice to transform a staff of 160 into remote workers. By the close of business on Monday, employees at BBQ Guys were prepping an overnight setup to work from home with the help of the company's IT staff. We did everything to virtualize our call center, said Corey Tisdale, Chief Executive Officer of the Baton Rouge-based online retailer of grills and outdoor furniture. We're pulling computers out of our offices and giving to employees so that they can reconnect them at home. When the company conducted a test to see how smoothly the work-from-home system was working at 7 a.m. on Tuesday, it found the longest customer wait times were 45 seconds. After a few days of working remotely, the online numbers were looking good for BBQ Guys, thanks in large part to the millions of people who were staying home and looking for things to do. Sales were up slightly. Social media traffic had increased by 50%, and orders for grills were particularly strong. I'm proud of the whole crew, Tisdale said, and when there's a will, there's a way. Scores of businesses across Louisiana quickly adjusted to having the bulk of their employees working from home as its offices had attempted to keep people from gathering and interacting with customers as a way of slowing the spread of the coronavirus and to abide by the stay-at-home orders, which had been extended to April 30th. Mohit Movij, president of General Informatics, said his Baton Rouge-based IT firm helped about 20 to 30 companies transition to having employees working from home. The moves affected thousands of workers. Half of our clients are set up to work remote, half never cared about it. Vij said Louisiana-based businesses generally are better prepared to have employees start working remotely because the companies are used to making contingency plans when hurricanes threaten. This is not our first rodeo. We've been through it a few times, he said. We're in a place that goes through this regularly. Even for those who typically are prepared, stay-at-home orders across multiple states presented a challenge. Jones Walker, a New Orleans-based law firm, has plans for working remotely developed in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina and Gustav. Bill Hines, managing partner, said the company has a 25 disaster recovery and business continuity plan and has worked on exercises on how to handle natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and live shooters. But the scope of the coronavirus pandemic has been an issue. 15 of the firm's 17 offices are in cities where either the mayor or the state's governor has put a stay-at-home recommendations. Just 60% of the company's software is licensed to allow employees to work remotely. We may ask why we never licensed the other 40%, Hines said. That's because we never thought we would have to have as many people working remotely at one time. Even a Hurricane Katrina-sized storm wouldn't place this many employees. Hines said he quickly bought the necessary license to fill all 160 of Jones Walker's staff and partners could work from home. The disruptions caused by the coronavirus may lead to many changes. Maybe we can do more work remotely, he said. He knows that young staffers are more comfortable with using the technology to take care of clients from home. You realize that you can do a lot more with technology, and there's a lot less need to have a big, fully built-out office. Make a note of that, ladies and gentlemen. For businesses that aren't used to having employees working remotely, the biggest issues are cybersecurity and training workers on connecting computer systems and phones. As employees had computers that were not secured or hadn't maintained antivirus software, Vij of General Informatics said. Then there was an issue of when they were becoming an extension of employees' computer network. The key for our companies is to have a policy in place for remote work in case of emergencies. With that, you don't have to quickly train employees in advance of a disaster, Veej said. Emergent Method, an 8-year-old management company consulting firm, was long accustomed. Emergent Method, an 8-year-old management consulting firm, has long accustomed to using instant messaging platform Slack and is getting ready to start using Zoom, a popular video and audio conferencing system. We were used to cloud-based solutions for file storage and management, said John Snow, a partner in the company. We had been practicing this for a while, and we didn't think we were getting ready for a global pandemic. This allowed for the 40 or so Emergent employees to fully, seamlessly transition from working in an office to doing their chores from home. As long as we have reliable internet, we're in good shape, Snow said. One of the challenges for Emergent Method has been making the employees feel like part of the team, even though they are scattered around in different locations. It can be easy to lose regular touch points and communications between project teams, Snow said. Using Zoom, the company regularly has meetings and project team hurdles. Annie Landry, a consultant at Emergent Method, also handles communications, said that while she misses being in the office, keeping contact with her coworkers and supervisors through Slack and Zoom allows her to be productive. Zoom meetings are just as efficient as getting together in a conference room, she said. It's easy to feel disconnected, but I still talk to the people I do work with every day, she said. I just do it virtually. I do think that's helpful. Landry says she's been able to have some productive days. There's a whole lot of alone time, so you can crank out a lot of work, she said. Jason Stutz, Barbecue Guys, Vice President of E-commerce and Analytics, says he thinks his productivity has gone up as a result of working from home. Now that he's doing meetings via video conference, Stutz says he can be doing other tasks on his laptop at the same time. Some of the distractions have gone away, so the productivity goes up, he said. Software has also been crucial for keeping Bridgeside Social Services operating. For the company, which operates outpatient mental health clinics in Denham Springs and Bogalusa, the pandemic was a chance to test the telehealth software program it developed in the aftermath of the 2016 flood. Yvonne Roquemore, Chief Executive Officer and co-owner of Brightside, said the company developed Everso as a way of providing treatment to clients and verifying that the sessions actually occurred. Before the pandemic, about 60% of the company's business involved making field trips with clients. We wanted to keep our clients and staff safe and retain all of our staff, so we went to 100% telehealth overnight, Roquemore said. Well, I took a bit of education to make sure all 206 clients had smartphones and home computers to allow for the conferences to happen. She said it has paid off. For one, Brightside's had 100% compliance with all appointments this week. Telehealth makes it easier to arrange for treatment for patients, especially those with children who no longer have to worry about traffic and getting to a session. I would love to see this rolled out as a natural and normal treatment for clients, she said. Baton Rouge-based SCI Research, which conducts market research for businesses from attorneys to political campaigns and consumer companies, temporarily shuttered its brick-and-mortar offices. The company typically recruits for focus groups and mock jury situations for customers, but it's no longer hosting in-person groups after statewide restrictions were enacted. SCI Research has one way to make its outbound and inbound calls center remote, but it required workers to install phone lines in quiet spaces, which were difficult to do when so many were working from home. Instead, the company has relied on internet surveys for clients and has kept a skeleton staff to keep fielding calls for future business. Our clients tend to want to be in front of people, up close and personal, said John Boston, owner of SCI Research. We're still getting phone calls, but we're turning down some business right now. Meanwhile, tutoring business Best in Class has adopted to the new system of social distancing. The company began transitioning all of its tutors who are independent contractors into online sessions. After the K-12 public schools closed across the state began closing their doors and ordering online classes, the company expected a boost in new clients, but that hasn't happened yet. Best in Class typically has about 200 tutoring sessions a week, but it's now down to fewer than 100 appointments on the book. We lost about 50% of our revenue since the restrictions, but we are as close to what we made last year in this month, March. My concern is that if this continues, Stephanie Crawford, owner of Best in Class, we're going to be able to stay in business because we were able to make the transition to online tutoring. Still, the company has 2 physical locations in Lafayette and is on the hook for rent. The demand for standardized testing preparation such as ACT has fallen off because the administration does not know when the test will be given. The hope is that when UL students begin online classes once again, demand for tutoring, even remotely, will rebound. Some businesses that provide services to critical infrastructure companies such as GIS Engineering Constructions hasn't seen a drop in customers' demand, but it did transition its employees to work mostly from home. Some of the work Some of the work does still require workers to visit customers on site, but much of the design and engineering is done remotely. The Baton Rouge office typically has 16 employees working together, but now the company is hosting conference calls and workers have taken home desktops, and even chairs. The business did buy more virtual private network capacity for employees, but expects to save some money on printing costs. Our team is having 2-day phone calls just to make sure everything is on track, says Bruce Thomas, Vice President of Engineering and Construction at GSI. The company has also been able to continue being productive so far. We're still able to conduct our reviews of design online, so everyone has access to see the same we would see if we were all together in the same office, Thomas said. The biggest concern is if customers would cancel in-person site visits, which hasn't happened yet. In the short term, the company expects it could potentially save money by not printing out so many copies of designs. We find that we can actually get by without all those printed copies. Maybe we'll reduce our paper use in printing out of drawings and documents, said Thomas. So that's an article telling you that we're going to be working from remote offices pretty soon, everybody. Okay, this is technically an editorial, but it's a story about our friend Tom Dempsey. According to Rod Walker, who is the author, Tom Dempsey stayed in the new NFL record books for 43 years, but remains a Saints lore forever. Neither did hell freeze over on the second Sunday of November in 1917 when Tom Dempsey's 63-yard field goal sailed through the uprights at Tulane Stadium. Those metaphorical miracles didn't happen until 40 years later when Garrett Hartley nailed a game-winning field goal to send the Saints to the Super Bowl. Dempsey's game-winning kick 4 decades before that didn't make those types of franchise-defining implications, although you wouldn't have known it by listening to the enthusiastic broadcast of the play. It's on the way. It's good. It's good. It's good. The Saints have won. The Saints have won. What exactly did they win in the 19-17 week 8 victory over the Detroit Lions? Well, they won their second game of the season, and it was their last. The Saints finished 2-11-1 that year. But what the Saints did win that day was some hope. Dempsey gave fans of the then woeful franchise something to be proud of. Long before Drew Brees began writing one chapter after another in NFL books, Dempsey wrote page 1. He stamped his place in NFL history books and gave Saints fans a reason to stick their chest out when there weren't a whole lot of reasons to do so. No one had ever kicked a field goal from that far out, and it took 3 years for anyone to kick one longer than that. It was one of those records that you thought might never be broken. Dempsey, who played just 2 seasons in New Orleans, became a legend that day. If there was a Mount Rushmore for great special teams plays in NFL Saints history, his kick would be in the conversation. It belongs right up there with John Gilliam's kickoff return for a touchdown on the first game in franchise history, and Steve Gleason's blocked punt, Hartley's field goal, and the ambush of Super Bowl. I got to do Roman numbers here. That looks like Super Bowl XLIV 44, maybe. The replays of Dempsey's historic kick were shown over and over on Sunday, and the day after Dempsey died at the age of 73, Dempsey, we're going to start over. Replays of Dempsey's historic kick were shown over and over on Sunday, the day after Dempsey died at the age of 73. Dempsey, who revealed in 2012 he was battling dementia, died 10 days after testing positive for COVID-19. He left his mark on New Orleans with just one kick. The odds of him making that kick seemed great, considering the odds it took for him to ever be in the NFL in the first place, but you already know the story. Dempsey was born without fingers on his right hand and without toes on his right foot, but he would not let that stop him from getting into the NFL. Owner Gail Benson summed it up best. Tom's life spoke directly to the power of the human spirit and exemplified his resolute determination to not allow setbacks to impede following his dreams and aspirations, she said in a statement on Sunday. If you know anything about New Orleans, you know it's a city that appreciates stories like Dempsey's. It's a city that thrives on resiliency and overcoming the odds. It's why it seems almost fitting that less than 48 hours after Dempsey's death caused by the disease that has placed sports on pause and has changed our everyday life, we get to turn to another resilient former Saint to give us hope. ESPN will air the 2006 game against the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night at 8. Its rebirth is called around here. It will be a reminder to all of us that despite the tough times the city hit so hard by Katrina then and coronavirus now will indeed bounce back. So if you tune in and you catch Gleason's block punt, don't just think back to 2006. I'll look at the one Saints special team icon lifting us up as we mourn the loss of another. Rest in peace, Tom Dempsey. I was in Vietnam, folks. A friend of mine, I was in my bunk, and a friend from New Orleans came running over to wake me up to tell me that the Saints had won on a 63-yard field goal, and I just laughed in his face for a couple of days till the newspaper got there. And then, well, we know what happened then. All right, another editorial, Stephanie Grace. When I said governors lead the way, I meant the ones who aren't idiots. I wrote, this is an editorial, not news. I wrote last week that the governors... I'm going to start over. I wrote last week that the country's governors are having a moment. I said that they've emerged as the real leaders in this time of crisis, people who have taken the novel coronavirus alarm spread seriously and respond with every tool they have, even as the signals from President Donald Trump have changed on a daily basis. And I named names from both parties, including Louisiana's Governor John Bel Edward. There's one thing I neglected to say, though. I was talking about governors who were non-idiots, and I don't use that term lightly. Brian Kemp, Georgia's governor, made me do it. And finally, issuing a stay-at-home order for his state last week, Kemp stood before the cameras and admitted that he has just learned that people who aren't showing symptoms can transmit the coronavirus. We didn't know it until the last 24 hours, he said on Wednesday. Yes, this past Wednesday, many weeks since the basic but vitally important fact had been part of the conversation. It's not as if Kemp State had been untouched. As of Friday, 5,831 cases had been diagnosed, 1,158 people were hospitalized, and 184 had died. Daugherty County alone has seen more than 560 cases and 30 deaths after two funerals in the city of Albany turned out to have been super spreading events. It's not as if he didn't have plenty of expertise to call on. Atlanta is not only a top-flight research institution, but it is also the federal home of the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Kemp may not have known much, but he sure knows how to bury his head in the sand. So does Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Florida has a large population of elderly residents who are considered particularly vulnerable. It may have been hit too hard, and it was I'm going to start over. And so does Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Florida has a large population of elderly residents who are considered particularly vulnerable, and has been hit hard by the pandemic. Yet DeSantis dithered before finally issuing a shelter-in-place order and allowed spring break beach parties to carry on long after word was out about the dangers of crowded gatherings. He changed his mind, he said, not based on the evidence of the sense of responsibility, but after he saw Trump's newly serious demeanor. Good Lord. It is a coincidence that these two are Republicans, or that some dozen states who still haven't ordered anyone to stay at home as of Friday are led by GOP governors too. Sure doesn't seem likely. There may have been other factors at play, from lower population density to small government philosophy, but to the extent these governors are waiting for the man at the White House to show them the way, they're not doing their jobs. Louisiana, of course, is having a terrible time with the virus, even as a new Democratic governor has got tough quickly. U.S. Representative Clay Higgins aside, though most Republican politicians in the state, due to their credit, have strongly backed Edwards up. It is impossible to say what would have happened under Governor Eddie Rispone, the Republican runoff candidate in last fall's elections, who never had served in government and who had built his campaign around loyalty to Trump. Maybe he would have risen to the occasion. I, for one, am not okay with finding out. As for Edwards, Louisiana's took a chance on someone they didn't know all that well in 2015, despite the fact that many of them tend to vote Republican. They got to see him action soon afterward when massive 2016 floods, the anti-Sterling shooting, and a massacre of law enforcement officers in Baton Rouge demanded strong, organized, and emphatic responses. I think that was when Edwards built a real bond with many of his constituents, and that he has demonstrated strength in difficult times, helped him fend off Rispone's nakedly partisan challenge, which brings me to some unexpected words of wisdom uttered last week without a hint of irony by Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and point person on the administration's response, despite an utter lack of qualifications of expertise in the area. Quote, what a lot of workers are seeing now is what you get when you elect somebody about who will be competent manager during the time of crisis, Kushner said. Louisiana did, and I don't think there's much voter remorse right now, at least not here. And that concludes the editorial from Stephanie Grace. If you'll pardon me 1 second, I'm going to take the time to look through the paper, and we're going to switch over to something that we look forward to every day. That will be our horoscopes. And I think this is going to be our last article of today. Let's have a look at the horoscopes, ladies and gentlemen. This is April 6th again. Mr. Aries, keep life simple. Eliminate what isn't necessary and focus on what is. A disciplined approach to life will help you reach your goal. Personal gain is attainable. Taurus, doors will open if you send out your resume to set up a meeting. Don't limit it to what you can do. Don't limit what you can do because you can't make up your mind. Consistency will be required. Gemini, if you aren't focused, people will be uncertain as what you are trying to achieve. The more time you spend analyzing a situation, the more confused you will become. Making self-improvement your priority. Cancer, don't offer too much information. If you misuse information or misrepresent someone, you will be held accountable. Concentrate on projects that help you hone your skills and brings about a positive change. Leo, being humorous at someone else's expense will lead to trouble. If you want to stand out, help others. Focus on self-improvement, not on trying to change someone else. Virgo, work on projects that require detail, creativity, and intelligence. Avoid peers who want to drag you into their personal affairs, and don't let your outside change disrupt your plans. Libra, check out courses offered in your community. Learning a new skill will give you a pick-me-up that you will need to venture down a different path. Avoid indulgence in demanding people. Scorpios, don't let anyone hold you back. If you explore new interests, you'll meet people who have something unique to offer. A partnership will need an adjustment to maintain balance and equality. Sagittarius, someone will share information with you where you stand, and it will tell how well people like you. Question anything that causes uncertainty. Honesty is the best policy. Capricorns, put some thought into the way you live and how well you take care of your mental, emotional, and financial health. A change will provide useful. Create a healthy environment. Aquarius, socialize with your peers. That's counter to what we're hearing today. I guess you do it online. Aquarius, socialize with your peers. If you combine work with pleasure, you will gain respect and support you need to follow through with your plans. And last but not least, we have our Pisces. If you are open about your feelings and plans, you will find out that where you stand. A positive change will occur once you let go of the past. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, we had a short paper, and apparently I read too fast because I'm about done. This has been a public service of AOC Community Media. You can go online to aocinc.org to find out more. Our daily telecasts this week are including a whole lot of programming for young kids from school systems. Teachers have submitted programs. We're also running a fair number of Festival International reruns, as well as people still submitting their online programs via the internet. My name is Ben Uncle Eddie. I thank you for tuning in. And this is, here again, AOC Community Media Public Service reading of the Morning Advocate. Have a great day. Stay safe. Spread some love. And thanks for listening.